Hey YouTubers, welcome back. So just going to do a little overview of what we've got so far and what we're going to be working on today. So we have the pot, so we can drag the pot where we want to, and now we're about to add the animation states that work with the collision. So at the moment you've got the animation going and you've got the box collider attached to the animation. The pot knows when the pot's touching, and now you'll be adding the functionality that tells the animation to play if it's sitting on top of the fire, or telling it to stop once it's been moved away. So we'll just do a little quick look on how that's going to work, and then we'll get stuck into it. So you already know how to make a simple animation, so we would be making an animation where it's the bubbles are moving upwards, and then we're making the initial state, which is an idle state. So while the pot is away from the collider, it runs the idle state, and then as soon as it touches, it activates like the next stage, playing the animation. From there we also have some scripts that are attached to the pot and how to actually order the animation so that it follows the pot as well. So anyway, let's get into it. Far too exciting to be talking about it, so let's make something. Okay, so what we're going to start with here is to create our two states of animations. So for this to run, it needs to have an idle state and a running state where it's bubbling. So it's pretty simple to do. Just grab our pot and we're going to create the bubbles. So we're going to need an image and find our artwork. Drag a little bubble in there. Oh, maybe size it down a little bit. Use this one. You can just hold down the shift key and drag on the blue pins. And don't forget to name stuff. Bubble 1, that will help. And you can just copy paste these 2 and 3, and then just resize them as you like, just for a bit of variation. Otherwise it just looks too mechanical if they're all the same size. Put that on there, I think. Ideally you're going to want them starting so you don't see them. We're just going to put an overlay over the top of this, just another drawing of the pot. Oh, I should have done that first actually, thinking about it. We can get rid of these. And just call this overlay. And that will act something similar to a mask, so we don't have to see it. And on each of these bubbles we will be creating an animation. They'll have a separate animation here. So this is going to be bubble 1. Save. And this is just like you've done before, so we're just going to be changing the position and the scale, so as the bubble grows, and then it's going to pop. So starting here, I think probably around a second. You can test it out. Just move the timeline to the end of the frame, so you've got your start frame where the bubble is beneath the rim of the pot, and then drag to the end frame, and we're going to want to move the bubbles up, and we're also wanting to scale the bubbles, so I would think maybe 1.5. It's all a little bit of testing, that's all part of the fun of it. And then just drag your playhead back and forth. You can see what it's going to look like. I'm reasonably happy with it. I mean, it's pretty budget animation, but we'll be alright. And we're just going to do the same with these 3, so I don't think you'll need to see that process again. It's just changing the variations on the size of the bubble and changing the length of that animation just to make it a little bit more varied. So just do that. So we can just see what it's looking like all together. I think that will be okay. And then we need to create an idle animation, and they can all share the same animation for this. So to create a new clip, we'll just do this, and we'll just call it bubble idle. And bubble idle. Okay, so here we're going to just change the opacity of the image. So while it's in the idle state, we just won't be able to see it. And to do that, we'll just change the opacity here, and that's just pulling the alpha down so that it's invisible. And it only needs to be one frame animation that's repeated, so we just delete that last one. That's annoying. And pull it down to 0. Okay, cool. And now we just need to create the states. So if we go back to our bubble, when we created the animation, bubble one animation, it created for us an animator, and this actually is the one that controls the states of the animation. So when we initially play this animation, it will only play this one state, but to change it so that it can play 2 or more states of animation, we just need to drag in the animation clip we made for the idle animation, and we're going to right click on that and make it a default state. So that's the first piece of animation that will load, and then when a certain condition's been met, for example when the pot has hit the flames, it will create a transition and allow it to move to the next piece of animation. And we'll do the same here. We're going to create a transition to go back. When the flames are no longer touching the pot, it will play that. And to get that to work, we also need to create some booleans. So here we're going to call it is bubbling. And on these little arrows, this is where you're going to add which boolean it's responding to. So you click on the little arrow, and we're going to tell it that when this is playing, is bubbling is true, and when you want it to play the idle animation, is bubbling is false. And we can test that out just by hitting this, and then it will play. So either the bubbling is not true, so it's playing the idle animation, and now it's playing the bubbling animation. So we'll just turn that off. And we just need to do the same process for the other 2 bubbles. So if we load up bubble 2, and we have to add the idle animation in there, create that as the default state, make a transition, and add the booleans. And I'll call it the same name because it means when we call it in code, we only have to use the same name and it will work on all of them, as long as I spell it the same. And here we just hook that up again. It's true, it's false. And the last one, just double click on that and create a right click on that and make it the default layer, right click, make a transition, make another transition, add your booleans. And again, click on, say that it's true, so you want it to be bubbling, and that it's false, that it's stopped bubbling. Okay, so that should work, and we can just test that out again, and it should just be working on, what's happening there? A second, have a little look. Okay, so I found what the problem is. You can see that the actual animation on that frame is playing, but it's the opacity that we need to change. So that's easy to do. We need to just create an opacity channel on the Bubble 3 animation. So to do that, we need to open up the animation that we made. So it's going to be the same name as this, Bubble 3 animation. And go back to your animation plane, and we're going to need to add a property here. So to do that, we need to click on Bubble 3, and here we'll just add the property, and we want to add the color, and just to make sure that that's set to fully visible instead of being invisible like it was. So there's always little things that we sneak up on you, so sometimes it takes a little bit of head scratching. So there we go. So we should be able to play that now, and we can test out whether that's actually going to be working on the animator. So see if it is bubbling, and there we are. So it goes from is bubbling to not bubbling. Cool, so let's get that hooked up to the code. I might make that in a next episode, so see you in a second.